welcome to another Typology interview. We have Kim. How's it going, Kim?
Good, how's it going?
Good. We have already, quick comment, excited to see Kim.
It's great.
Not wasting any time. Yeah. So let's start as we always do. How did you get into typology?
Okay, so I remember it being like January sophomore year of high school because we had to take these specific tests like based on your MBTI type, like what sort of careers you would suited for. And I came out typed as an INFP. I know, like I'm gonna give you a couple seconds, laugh at it, being like, how'd you get typed INFP?
Just a complete upside down, but it's right.
Yeah,
It's like the same quadra. Yeah.
yeah, I was saying
Same
quadra, but
functions.
completely upside down because like in the
Yeah.
school environment, I'm actually quite quiet. Like believe it or
Okay.
not, like when I'm in there, it's like I'm very much put my head down, do what I have to do. Don't really bother with many people. I'm like, I'm just here to work, man. So I was reading up about that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that. Like, oh, I'm very emotional. I'm very quiet on the inside. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, no, I get that. Have a very close inner circle. Like, oh yeah, I totally get that. Take in patterns all day. Yeah, I understand that. And then around college, I really started to explore it more, and I was like, wait a minute. Everyone else is telling me that I'm like very outgoing and extroverted and loud. And I'm like, wait a minute, I might not be seeing myself right. And then I kept retaking like the 16 personalities test and I came back as ENTJ. And I'm like, wait a minute, that makes sense, but I don't think I have an I. Like I just could not see myself having savior and I or NI at all. And
Yeah.
then sophomore year of college, like it was really funny 4 years later, it was just I randomly stumbled upon OPS, the YouTube channel, when they were doing their introductory videos, and every single EJ video, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm an EJ. Wait, what? Sign up for the
Yeah.
class. Watch the like introductory class videos like 4 or 5 times over just to make sure I got, because when I was going to make a guess on my type, I'm like, I need this to be exact. I need it to be right. So I ended up typing myself the same type as Tony Robbins. I was like,
Oh,
I think because I was seeing masculine sensory and I was seeing
yeah.
activate gather. So I was like, oh, it has to be
Really
the same.
close.
SI did
Yeah,
not
really
cross my
close.
mind at all. Yeah, that's what Shan said when she was on the
Yeah.
phone with me in August, like early August. She's like, you were very close, except you're TESI. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm Savior SI. What? Like everyone in my family is like, you're disorganized. And then when I have everyone who's like not Savior OI, they're like, you're absolutely like controlling. You need everything to be organized. Like to the point where it was like I would get frustrated at my friends when I would give them a box of things to put their stuff and they wouldn't put the things in the designated box. And I'd be like, why aren't you putting it in here? I gave you a tool. I gave you a thing to help you organize. Why aren't you listening to it? And I started to see that more. I was like, wait a minute, like, yeah, despite how much I gather, it's like I don't, number one, I don't feel responsible for it as much. I'm like, I kind of just go where the intuition takes me. Number two, my play, I'm not double masculine play. Like when I
Yeah.
interact with people, like I'm much more like, we're going to go over here and we're going to go over here. And then I started to see, wait a minute, when I communicate with people, I am like sharp. Yes or no, this is what happened. But it's almost like I cross examine people when I'm asking them a bunch of questions, or it almost leaves it like a mini interrogation and I won't even realize it because double masculine SD blast at the
Right.
top, you accidentally be like, you did this correct. This would make more sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, I get that too, where I come off as interrogating because I've got that masculine consume, and it's like I've got this one question that I want answered, and I'll just push and push until I get the exact answer that I want, and it's like, yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's very curious to see like the differences between double masculine SD consume at the top and then double masculine SD blast at the top because it almost in a sense is very interesting that it's like you're like the most crystal clear consume and my consume's like one of the least crystal clears. Like, what am I gathering?
Yeah. But like then at the same time, you've got the crystal clear blast. Like
Oh
you're not
yeah.
getting misunderstood.
Oh yeah. It's my favorite thing when people are like, you sure you didn't have anything else to say, or is there some other? No, girl, there's no alternative motive. I said what I said. Like Stanley from The Office. Did I stutter? No, I didn't stutter. I said what I said.
Right. Do you still feel like sometimes you get misunderstood?
Yes.
Okay.
All the time, especially in more like emotional based settings
Mm.
because of how aggressive the blast is. It's like, I need to solve the problem, I need to solve the issue. And it's more difficult for me to sort of take a step back and look at the vibe in the room, being like, okay, is everybody at a place where I can really be an aggressive problem solver? Is somebody really in the place to hear the kind of advice or solutions that I want to passively impose on people, or attempt to passively impose on people? Give a
Right.
little nudge saying, hey, I think this is what you should do. And sometimes I used to get misinterpreted as invalidating, which hurt, because it was like, I really do care about you. And maybe I don't show that care in like a putting your arm around you and crying with you and stuff like that. But it's like, if I'm going to show you that I care about you, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you're not upset anymore and fix whatever's bothering you.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I get that too as the ST as well. It's like I want to fix what's bothering people, and sometimes that's not what they need. They just need to, you know,
Hmm.
the feeling side.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Oh, totally. Like, it's like another thing that's been hard too for people to get is like, despite how like blast play, like go, go, go I am, emotional conversations are very draining for me. Like, I'll sit there for 15, 20 minutes and be like, all right, I need to tap out.
Mm.
It's not, if I haven't processed it, it's like I'm drained already.
Yeah. So that's
And
something I'm seeing a lot with FI, and especially with FI at the bottom, is that um, until they've made a conclusion over, like until you've processed it, it's not comfortable sharing, right?
right,
It's the same thing with TI. Until I've made a conclusion, until I've processed my thoughts, I don't want to share it because it's
right,
not ready. It's
yeah,
in the middle. It's an early, yeah. It's like showing your work of art, like a masterpiece, when it's just, lumps of clay and not put together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's just like a simple outline, and I'm like, I'm not done yet.
Right.
Like, I haven't filled in anything. I haven't shaded. I haven't added dimension yet. I haven't filled in any color. And it's
Yeah.
like, too, being the sleep last. It's like that's the last thing I do is look inward and process. Like, that's hard. And if people expect me to
Mm.
share when I'm not, if I'm not given the time to like sit down and really understand that FI, I'm never going to be able to FE properly. Like, I'm
Yeah.
actually going to offend everyone around me, and I don't mean to.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's jump into those functions a little bit. We were doing non-function talk, which is a lot better. But I mean, uh, we should maybe address a little bit the masculine TE in the room that has a lot of stigma around it and stuff. Do you feel very? Do people tell you you're punchy? Are you aware of how you're perceived?
I wasn't until I was 20. I never
Okay.
saw myself as punchy. Like, in high school, I used to be afraid of ESTJs, and it's almost like I want to time travel back to that point where she's sitting in class and whisper in your ear, "Guess what? You're an ESTJ," and just like leave.
Huh.
I never realized how punchy I was for the longest time until I started to see, wait a minute. Like, it was a combination of like, yes, being punchy, but being punchy in a self-protecting kind of thing. Like, I've always been described as being a little bit like a turtle, like the hard shell and the soft inside, of being like,
Right.
try to present myself as very tough on the outside. Like, I try to have this big, powerful bravado where I go. But on the inside, I'm
Right.
not like that at all.
Yeah.
Very movable, very flowy. Like
Yeah.
it's like I'll cry like twice a month, but when I do, it's like waterworks everywhere.
Mm. Do you feel like you're getting misperceived a lot then because of that as well?
Yeah, where it's like people will misinterpret the masculine TE as being like intentionally belligerent, abusive, sometimes manipulative, controlling, abrasive. When
Abrasive, yeah.
out of 10, it's like you're either catching them on a bad day when 50 other things are going wrong in their life, or it's them trying to protect themselves from being completely vulnerable, because there's this big fear of, if I show that I'm weak, then people know where to hit me where it hurts, and I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And it's more so
Yeah.
coming from a place of tough love. Like, masculinity for me anyway, it's very much a tough love type of function, where it's like, if like, yes, I can be tough on you, but I'm tough on you because I care about you, and you should be concerned when I stop being tough on you, because that means I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause that's also true. Like the people who you care about most are the people who can hurt you the most. So those are the people that maybe you want to keep your guard up against more because just strangers, who cares?
It's such a weird dichotomy of, I care about you, I want to let you in, but I can't let you in, because if I let you in, you're going to know where to hurt me, and then I have to put my walls up again.
Right.
But I want my walls to come down because I care about you and I want you in my FI.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's complex. What about in terms of seeing thoughts on a spectrum, comparing ideas, things like this?
Oh, I like stuff like this. I love stuff like this of like bouncing from idea to idea to idea. Like if people were to tell me like in terms of a brainstorming, like, oh, that idea sucks. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. It probably does suck. Explain why it sucks. All right, this looks off. This looks off. Okay, all right. Move on to the
Right.
next idea. Or it may not be a case of bad idea. It might be good idea. However, a couple things need to be tweaked. Okay, cool. What is that? And then
Mhm.
we can work on it from there. Like I always want people to question my reasons. It's when people question my motivation for things that I get defensive.
Right. Yeah.
It's like you can question all you want of if I'm being effective or not, if I'm helping you in a way that is useful for you, but do not question why I'm helping you.
Right.
Then my FI will go up.
I do want to get back to that because that's really good. Um, what about in terms of in terms of knowing where you stand and what you think about things? Do you feel like the triangulation, like pinging off of others, pinging off of everything to figure out what you think, is that something that you see yourself doing a lot?
Subconsciously. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I can BS TI and SE pretty well. Like I feel like I can BS those two just because of the double masculine ST where it's like,
Right.
oh, like I can figure out reasons for myself, or I can gather all these facts. And absolutely, the triangulation helps of bouncing off ideas from person to person to person. And in a way, it helps me not only open up new perspectives, but consider things I haven't thought before. But it helps build that internal framework in myself of being like, wait a minute, this needs to make sense for me. Like, forget having things make sense for other people for once. This needs to make sense for me because if it doesn't make sense for me, then people are going to take me preaching it making sense to other people as fake, as
Yeah.
false.
Yeah. So then once you get to that state, what's the process of TEing with other people to fix that? Or is there another process?
I just kind of bounce ideas back and forth with people. And then after I bounce off the ideas, I would need like 10 minutes to myself to figure out, like, I probably would need more than 10 minutes, but the sleep last is like, we're going to fix this right now.
Right.
We don't need to sleep. We can solve this till 4 a.m. if I need to. But it's taking some time to figure out, really digest what everybody said, take notes on what everybody said, and then come back saying, okay, I found this interesting. I found this interesting. This perspective is cool. However, like it was cool watching the other functions kind of play out and be like, I can see
Yeah.
how you're doing this. I can see how this function works and how I'm not showing this.
Yeah. I was thinking of it in terms of an analogy when you go to take a test that you didn't study for, and it's like the teacher leaves the room. So it's like how do you figure out what to answer on the test? And so like TE is probably polling everybody, trying to figure out what did you answer? What did you answer? Okay, now because I asked everybody, I know what I want to answer.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a mix of that, but what I also do is if I go on a question, have a question that I don't know, like going off the test analogy, I put a circle on it and then I come back to it afterward after I answer everything that I do know for myself before going out to the other people. Because I'm going to be like,
Right.
okay, let's see how much I know. Then I'll go talk about other people and be like, hey, what do you think?
Hmm. What about it? What about in terms of like let's say you get this really weird new idea. Can you place it on how good the idea is really quickly?
For the most
How do you judge? Yeah, how do you judge if that's a good idea or not?
Well, I first want to figure out if the idea already exists. Because if the idea
Yeah,
already exists, I'm like, okay, well, there's no time for me to think about that. And unless if I'm assigned a project where I'm trying to optimize an idea that's already created. But if it's
yeah,
something that I'm generating for myself to see, okay, is this idea exist? I first want to see, okay, does it already exist? Because if so, I'm not going to waste my time trying to invent something new when something already exists. If it doesn't
hmm,
exist, I'm like, okay, what do I want this system to do? Just not asking other people yet. What do I want it
yeah,
to do? What do I want the end goal to be? After I
yeah,
figure that out, I then survey other people. What do you think? What do you guys think of, okay, I have this idea. I have what I want it to do. What do you think of this idea? Do you think it should have a different purpose? How do you think this could serve you? How could this serve your neighbor? How could this serve the world even? Okay,
yeah.
you listed out all the reasons that make sense. How do you guys feel about it? Like
I get
what?
that a lot too. Yeah, I get that a lot too from masculine TE. That it's before it actually can value an idea or judge an idea, it has to see, well, what is this going to be used for? What's its purpose? What's the end goal? And
Hmm.
can it get us there?
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
very
like,
problem
yeah,
solution based.
yeah. Um, what about in terms of taking your ideas seriously when you throw out ideas and things like that, or like, I don't know, because like if someone was to say something to me, what they think, my natural default delusion is just to take it at face value and be like, okay, that's what they think. But that's not the kind of thing to do with someone with TE, right? You don't actually think that.
Inquire about that reasoning and be like, okay, why do you think this? How did you reach that conclusion? What sort
Yeah.
of where did you get your information from? First of all, seeing if you're actually BSing information or if you're giving me factual information.
Hmm. Yeah. No, but I mean, it's like if I wanted to judge, like, let's say you're talking about a political view or something like that. Let's just throw
Right.
that out there, okay? And so now, if I hear your political view, I will forever think that's your political view, right? But for a TE user, I'm wondering if no, that's not my political. That was what I was just thinking in the moment. I just shit something out, but that's not actually what I think politically. Is that the kind of do you, where do you
Yeah,
feel on yourself? Yeah,
it's like I'll throw an idea of like, oh, I think this particular thing on this issue, but I don't make a conclusion of, oh, that's someone's entire political view based on a single aspect where it's like, okay, you're like this, you think politically this way in terms of this particular issue.
right.
But I'm not
But
going to be
like,
like, oh, your entire political reasoning just because I've only heard one thing. It's like I need to hear more.
right. But like, would you throw out that reasoning quickly, or is it something that's just valuable in the moment? Is it something that do you have political like?
Valuable in the moment where I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, that's cool to know. Anyway, move on.
right. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Anything else you see with your masculine TE that maybe we glossed over?
Ooh, I think the blunt honesty that comes with it. It has
Yeah.
a responsibility to, like I it said earlier about tough love.
Yeah.
I'm very blunt. I'm a very blunt, honest. A spade to spade. I said what I said type of person. Sometimes to a default where that sometimes get misinterpreted as me being cruel or harsh or apathetic, but it's like I feel responsible to give you the truth because I feel like nobody else is going to say it. Like it's
Hmm.
almost like I'm saying the things that everybody else is thinking but doesn't, like, either doesn't say or like doesn't have the courage to say.
Yeah. What about things like white lies and stuff like that?
I
That's
hate it.
annoying to you?
It's annoying.
Yeah.
Like I've always said to people, like, look, if you're looking for like to a sugar coated opinion, ask somebody else. Like,
Right.
don't ask me. Like I'm not going to give you a cookie cutter. Like the everything's gonna be okay. No, I'm not gonna give you that.
What about in terms of like even holding your words back? Like, so there's like the white lie, there's the absolute truth, and then there's like, I won't say this.
That's difficult. I've been trying to learn. I've had to learn that over the years of figuring out when is the appropriate time to say it versus when is not the appropriate time to say it,
Right.
i.e., not saying it on a family vacation.
Yeah. 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 So, do you have any tips or ideas on how to get better at that, or how have you gotten better at that?
All right.
Holding
One of
yourself
the
back.
things
Do
that
you think
I've
it's
been able
important to do that?
it absolutely important to do that. You have to learn number one who you can be that harsh with and who not to be harsh with. Number one. Number two, I've always put a disclaimer to people saying, "Hey, um, I sometimes struggle with voicing how I feel about things and sometimes give the truth a little bit too harshly. So if I say anything that offends you, please let me know because 90% of the time I'm not meaning it how it comes out."
Yeah.
It's giving people the emotion of this is coming from a place of love instead of them finding out later after I've already beaten them down accidentally.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's tough. Beating them down accidentally.
So the third thing I do is in the moment, if I'm really having a hard
Yeah.
time, like physically biting my tongue, being like, I want to say it, I want to say it, I want to say it, is I have my phone or a notepad or something where I'm writing down everything I wish I could say and being like, you're not making sense here. This is stupid. Why are you freaking out? Like anything that I wish I could say, but will hold my tongue in the moment. So I at least get it out there, but I'm not saying it to anybody.
Yeah. Um, I wonder if some of your other functions help you control what you hold back or what you say like that. Because I mean, if you were maybe even more, I know you're double activated OE, so you want the information to be out there, even like you want to share and that all of the information is there. But I mean, do you see that as harmful as well sometimes?
Oh yeah, it get like having like doubling up on play is like, yeah, it gets you into trouble because you're like trying to pull everything because it's like you're looking for reasons even more that you're like
Yeah,
you're trying to pull every single possibility and every single reason, and people look
yeah,
at you like, why are you even exploring that? Like, why are you going down that direction? Like, nobody else is even going down there.
yeah. And so this is something I've been struggling with too. It's because you're seeing the spectrum of the tribe, the reasons, right? Then you know when someone's out of line and when you can hit them on the head because and you won't get pushed back because I don't know, because you're coming from a place of, hey, this guy's out of line and he needs to know it, right? Something like that.
More, not necessarily out of line, but it's more so, look, your emotions are completely valid. Your reasons make no sense.
Uh-huh.
Okay, look, I care about you. I validate what you're feeling, but you're not making any sense.
So this ties really well into a question we have here. But so for me, I want my logic validated, not my emotions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get along with TIs very well because we're
yeah,
both just like logic. Like, I have no problem if they're like, hey, this part of your logic's sloppy. I'm like, good, logic sloppy. All right, how do I fix it? Like, I feel like
yeah,
I get TI to a certain extent. Like, oh, I absolutely get what you're doing. Like, having the reasons be a lot more personal than mine, where it's like, hey, 50 reasons. All right, I can move on. Like, having
right.
the reason be the punchline instead of the emotion be the punchline.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from a personal side, it's like I don't like having my reasons brushed off just without being considered because if I took the time to actually formulate finally a reason and finally an argument and then present it and then just have it being like, yeah, that's one thing, but let's look like that's the kind of thing that's sort of harsh for TIs.
Adapt the compliment sandwich, that it's like you have the buns as the compliments and you leave your insult in the little thin patty, being like, you give a compliment, you give some criticism, and you end on a compliment instead of the insult sandwich where
Right.
it's like insult, insult, little blurb of compliment.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, it's a good analogy right there. Um, okay, we had another question here. Um, what is the perspective that TI fails to appreciate, but that is natural to TE?
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I don't know.
I would almost say it's, I can answer this very well in the reverse of like what the FI fails about the FE. And it's
Mhm.
like whether like people have FE like savior, demon, masculine, feminine, whatever, it's like appreciating wanting everyone to be on the same emotional wavelength and making sure that like, all right, we're all like very vibe
Yeah.
conscious. And it's like I feel like at times I fail to like appreciate that. And it took me a very long time to understand what the FEs were doing because I'm like, why are you trying to force me to do this? I fuck off. I want to be alone.
Yeah. I could try to answer this. I could try to answer this. When I'm doing computer coding and stuff, I'm making a program that's the best possible program, and I'm not really considerate if everyone could figure out how to use it, right? And so people will come to it and be like, "This is way too complicated." I'm like, "Yeah, but it does everything you need." It's like,
Right.
"No, get rid of all of these features. I don't care if it does everything I need. I just want to be able to know how to use it right away."
Not only that, but
That's
it's going to be
yeah,
used on every single type of computer system.
yeah. Yeah, that's something else too. Yeah. But I mean, like, the end user needs to use it, and that's where the TI isn't considering. It's like I just need to know that I can use it. I know how it works. That's enough for me. Yeah. How do you view people that can be harsh with? Oh, how do you differentiate the different kinds of people? Yeah, the ones you
Ooh,
can be harsh with, and the ones you have to be more gentle.
ooh, okay. One of the biggest giveaways if is the pushback, where if somebody pushes back with me, I'm like, all right, good, I can be harsher with you. I can say a harsher truth.
Mm,
Like my
that's
grandpa,
yeah,
for example, also savior masculine TE, just like me. But it's like we'll get into these like we'll make fun of each other and we'll go with each other because we're both just like you're gonna shove, I'm gonna shove, you're gonna shove, I'm gonna shove, and it's not personal. We'll be like hug it out in the end and be like, I love you. Let's
Yeah.
cry about our emotions together.
Yeah. No, that's really counterintuitive from my perspective because it's like if I'm gonna give to somebody and they shove back, it's like okay, I don't want. Okay, I'm done, right? But if I give this, if I'm like abrasive with someone or something like that, and they're like accepting and receiving of it, it's like oh, okay, I can keep doing more of this. Like that's the counterintuitive from my perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas with people who I have to be more gentle with, it's like I don't look at people I have to be with more gentle with negatively. I don't at all. It's more so of a sense of like, okay, like needing to be more conscious of I need to say something honestly, but I don't want to accidentally like hurt you. Like
Yeah.
that's not my goal. It's like I view them as more like a little bit more tiptoey. Like it's almost much more of a dance rather than like if I describe the two masculine DEs as almost like a boxing match, like a masculine DE and a feminine DE, it's almost like a little bit of a dance where you're trying to figure out, okay, I need to step here now. All right, I
Yeah.
need to go over here now to not disturb the natural flow of it. Because if you accidentally step on your partner's foot, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah. Do you get that cat energy pushback every so often from people?
Oh yes,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, where did this come from? Like, or when I'll ask like how long have you been feeling like this, or how long have you been thinking like this? Like, I don't know, a couple weeks. Why didn't you tell me a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I have the pushback as like a love language of mine, and I have to. It's been hard to accept the fact that hey, most people aren't going to use that as a love language.
Yeah. Okay, really good. What about in terms of hearing the voices of the tribe in your head all the time?
I've always felt like I've had to have a chip on my shoulder because of that. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I hear like everybody, like especially with the save your masculine aside, it is just like such a perfectionistic function because it's like I need the details to be organized. I need them to be linear, and I'm going to be aggressive with them because they're masculine. And it's almost like I've always been described for years. It's like having a very hard time letting go of things. And people are like, you need to let go, you need to let go, you need to let go. And I've always tell people, okay, try doing that when you have an anchor stuck at the bottom of the ocean.
Hmm.
Good luck at moving that anchor.
Yeah.
Like that is what my SI is doing to a detail. It is locking on there and it is wedged. It is stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's I wanted to get to the SI actually right now, so that's pretty good. Uh, but just before we do that, it's like if you say something, can you already hear what people are going to say back?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yes, if I make a mistake, it's like I hear 50 voices being like, "You're a failure. You're not good enough. Like you
Oh,
suck."
there's that part. Yeah. The
Yeah,
AJ.
it's the worthlessness part of it too.
Mm. Yeah. Um, because like you come off very confident in the way you talk, and you come off very confident in the way you behave, and like this is something with all of the EJs and especially masculine EJs. But it's like what's hidden under that is the lack of confidence. How does that
Absolutely
work?
scary.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like I try to come off very like self-assured, which is like everyone's gonna see right through that and be like, "You're insecure. You feel a lot." No, I don't. I'm good.
Right.
I'm fine. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really interesting because like the insecurities under the surface is like a back end insecurity, and you're leading with confidence. And I feel like I'm doing the opposite. I'm like leading with insecurity, but on the back end, I'm confident. If you actually go to challenge me, I've got all the TI worked out. Yeah,
Yeah. Like you got the mass and DI. It's like on the outside, you're like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But someone tries to challenge you, you're like,
yeah,
locked and loaded. Here are all my reasons. And then I'm like, yeah, challenge me. What you want to square up? And then when they actually square up, I'm like, oh, get away. I don't want to. I don't
right,
want to you.
yeah. Okay, so then in terms of the SI, masculine SI, does it feel like? Can you explain to us a little bit what it's like? Is it a timeline? Is it organizing the sensory? What's going on there? It's
It's like
probably a lot of different things.
a painful vortex of information. It's like the 7 layers of hell of information. If I had to describe it, it's like timelines, dates, details. It's like I've described this in the interview I did with Reggie of my memory being like a file cabinet.
Okay.
I have every file cabinet for every year I've been alive. It's like I have individual folders for like the months of the year, and then I have tabs for like the days. Where it's like I can pull out what I was doing like September of third grade and be like, oh,
Oh
I was
wow.
doing this thing.
What do you does that lend to holding grudges a little bit against people? Yeah.
Where it's,
This is a quick answer.
yep, because everyone else is like, oh, I moved on, and I'll be like, fuck you, Cindy from third grade. I didn't know it was Cindy in third grade, but like,
Yeah.
why do you remember that? Like, I feel like I remember like the most like useless information, but it's like I can't let it go.
Yeah.
I've had Gravy, like, your memory is just insane. Like, how do you remember it in that well of a detail? Like, people be like, oh, your memory's fake. And then they try to quiz me on things, and I'm like, "Hey, this thing, this thing, this thing." And they're like, you weren't kidding about your memory. I'm like, no, I wish I was. Like, it is absolute insanity that it's like, because of the double activated NE2, it's like I'm subconsciously taking in everything. Like I'm blast play, so it's like when I'm not in teaching mode, I'm like running around. People. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Hmm.
Taking all that in, and then from filtering that, I'm like, okay, what is the most important information for me to store? Like prioritizing
Yeah.
from everything I've taken in, what is important for me to store for myself.
Yeah. What about in terms of it being like really subjective? Like, do you feel like memories?
I feel like they're more intense than most people that I've talked to.
But I mean, like, if two people were in the same situation, do you feel like they came out of the situation remembering something completely different than you? Do you feel
Pro-
like you're very, yeah?
Probably.
Like, what is that subjectivity like? Like, how does it come to play? Have you seen it sort of brush up against an SE in a way?
Yes, I have, because I just think it's more personal. It's almost like I attach myself to the physical memory, where it's like the SEs are like I've described, like I've heard masculine SE be very much described like a video recorder that you're like watching everything go down, but it's like you're not like either attaching it to yourself if it's a savior and not attaching it to yourself if it's a demon. But it's like when you're savior masculine SI, it's like you're the main character in the movie. You're the one experiencing everything. So
Hmm.
yeah, you're gonna have a different perspective than anyone else.
Yeah,
It's very intense and it's like very personal of like this is my sensory, you don't touch it.
yeah. Like, do you feel like your experiences are very valuable or very influential or character building or
They can be.
yeah?
If I see something that is not structured in an optimal way, I try to do so. I try to break it down into the least common denominator and try to put a little bit more structure in life. And people
Mhm.
are like, "Oh wow, you really helped me there." Like, thanks. I'm like, "You're
Yeah.
welcome." I tried, but I don't try to come off as like controlling. Like because I never believe that. I'm like, I don't because when I heard the description for like OI is like controlling, I'm like, I'm not controlling. I don't control people, and it's like, yeah, I do in the
You
most
got the blast too, yeah.
possible.
You got the
Right.
double masculine blast and the OI, yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute, when I'm like outside of the teaching mode, I'm like very relaxed. But
Mhm.
change a bunch of details that I don't know about, mess up my calendar or like affect a detail or like you're gonna see the blast come out.
Yeah.
Tell me that I'm wrong about an information, like a little detail. I'm like, ooh, let me give you like 5 reasons why like your logic's wrong. 5 sources, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ta-da, you're wrong.
Yeah, so how do you perceive that in, gaslighting and stuff like that? Do you
Oh geez. Like in arguments, I can admit I can be absolutely brutal in arguments because it's just like, no, you're wrong. Nah, that's incorrect. That's like it's almost like a robot in a way of like, that's incorrect. That's not accurate. This is wrong. That's wrong.
yeah.
And it's very hard for like people to actually get a like valuable conclusion out of me when I'm in that kind of blocky mindset of like valuing the like rightfulness and wrongfulness of the information over what somebody's actually saying.
Yeah.
Because to them, I feel like it almost comes across as she's not caring about what I have to say. She just cares about being something being right. It's like some arbitrary thing being right or wrong.
Mm, yeah. We have a whole bunch of questions. This one, I'm sorry, Nacho, I'm gonna skip over till we get to the NEFI tidal waves.
Oh, I love your
Um,
username, by the way. I love nachos.
yeah. Okay. How about this one? As MDE, how do you see tribe being aggressive? Also, Benjamin, how do you view tribe? Do you see the tribe being aggressive as MDE?
Yes, actually, because like look at when I was like first getting into typology, I would have like hundreds of like self-typed like IPs being like ESTJs are aggressive, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's one of them and hundreds of you, and you're seeing them as a like that one person as more aggressive than like the herd of you. Whereas like trying to like almost like a strength in numbers kind of thing of being like you guys seem stronger because it's like a bigger group of people and it's like there's one of me, and because my like identity is internal, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna crumble in front of all these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got nothing to stand on.
So, like, you're seeing the tribe in terms of the tribe and not in terms of individuals. That's what you're trying to say?
Almost, yeah. Like it's harder for me to see like it's weird because in terms of the tribe, it's like I see the trees instead of the forest, but in terms of the details, I see the forest instead of the trees.
Yeah.
No, the
Um,
trees instead of the forest. Forgive me, that one. I had to correct
yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Um, no, because it's like that's something that I always struggled with because I do also see the tribe as aggressive, but I'm the feminine DE. So I'm wondering how that plays out. So like masculine DE sees tribe as aggressive, you identify with that, but the individuals you don't see as aggressive.
Hmm. No, I don't see the individuals themselves as aggressive. I see like the if it's like a grouping of individuals, it's like I almost see that as aggressive.
Yeah.
And I wonder too if it's feminine feeling versus masculine thinking kind of thing, where it's like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a very good question.
Um, how do you view SE versus SI? We kind of talked a little bit about it. Do you have yeah.
Ooh, okay. All right. I view SE as like it's like not as scrutinizing. Like what I notice is like they're not gonna like this is just some stupid like math analogy. Like sure, they'll round a decimal to the nearest tenth. Like they're not gonna round it to the nearest like tenth of like 10,000th decimal point. I'll be like, no, this
Mhm.
needs to be exactly like this.
Yeah.
Notice with it's a lot more of a
Less precision.
intentionality on my end too.
Yeah. Less precision, more able to jump from number to number and not go all in on the same number.
It's easier for them to jump and not attach the numbers to themselves where it's like I am the numbers. If
Yeah.
you're my kind of SI, it's like I am the numbers.
Yeah. So like in your memory, do you remember like the exact details, the exact colors? Like is that yeah, it's like that?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember September third grade, I was youth soccer. I remember what soccer field I was playing on my last game. I was soccer number 52. I played midfield defense, and we were almost went undefeated and lost to a team wearing a red jersey, 3-0.
Yeah. Because okay, so then the other way I see SI put as is like a train as well. Like you don't want to jump carts. You want to go from cart to cart because there's an
Yeah.
order to things. There's a
It's almost
structure.
yeah. It's like if someone were to tell me like put a blank piece of paper in front of me and tell me to draw something, I would have to ask them to clarify what something is. I don't know what something is. Like
Yeah.
instead of what is something like a truck, a bird, a bee, the moon, like instead of just being like, oh, these are I can gather these sensory things and have that be classified as something. It's like the SI needs to specifically know what that something is.
Yeah. No, I mean I get that too with sensory over intuition as well. Like it's the lack of wanting to guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, be specific with instructions. I don't want to guess. I don't want to
Right.
get it
It's like
wrong. Yeah.
if I'm going to go cliff jumping, it's like I need to know how high the jump is, like what's at the bottom, how many
Hmm.
people are going, how cold is the water, like all these certain details
Yeah.
before I feel comfortable taking the jump, the leap, the guess. Like there's
Yeah.
so much pressure on the guess too, where it's like pick one thing or the other. Like it's hard. Like I'm gonna like go into this more, but it's like so hard for me to kind of like figure out what I actually. Well, even though if I already know what I like, it's hard for me to be. say what I like is the first thing, because in my head I'm like, what makes sense for this person? What makes sense for this person? What makes sense for this? What makes sense for that? Is this more organized here? Like I see numbers going off everywhere compared to
Mhm.
like most other people in my life, and they're like, there's not as much pressure on the guessing as is in your head. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it's like if I get the guess wrong, then it's like, oh, you're inaccurate.
Yeah. Um, what about in terms of like uh feeling more comfortable if you've already been through a similar experience, that kind of thing? I mean, that's something on the whole NESI axis, I guess. It's like you want to already have gone through the experience and then you're comfortable doing it. If it's a new experience, that's kind of intimidating.
Yes and no. Like
New
yes,
sensory.
yes to like FI related things, because I'm like, oh, I needed to have it tied to myself. I need to know that this ties to myself, and once I know that, it's like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with this.
Hmm.
It's like having the double activated OE and savior play. It's like I feel like I'm a bit more comfortable than other TESIs who are like, I'm like, oh, okay, I have no problem jumping over here. Like in terms
Yeah.
of a new idea or a new reason or a new possibility, it's like, yeah, I can move over here. Yeah, I
Hmm.
can do that. Yeah, I can try that.
Yeah. What about like learning a skill, like learning how to drive or something like that? It's like, how do you build up that repertoire of SI so that, and how do you access it and interact with the SI
That
when
was
you're,
the scariest thing in the world for me, because it was like there's so much I have to pay attention to. Like there's so much like double observing, and there's so many what ifs, and it's like I used to get panic attacks over it because it was like I would be so concerned of like, what if I accidentally hurt somebody? What if I like it would like it wouldn't be what if I accidentally hurt myself? It was what if I accidentally hurt somebody else? What if I do something that injures somebody else, that causes harm to somebody else? Like it was always like more people focused, but it was like
hmm,
hard for me to kind of be like not treat like everything is like you're taking a road test. You're like it's like I put myself on these like impossible standards of like, all right, you're expected to be the best at this even though it's your first time doing it. And then sort of giving myself, okay, stop. Like you're not, this isn't Mario Kart. You're not an international race truck driver. You're not an expert yet. Like you're just learning. So it's like it's
yeah.
okay to make mistakes in a parking lot. It's okay if you don't park perfectly. It's okay if you don't turn perfectly. It's okay if you go a little bit too fast or accidentally slam the brake. Like learning, it's okay to take these sort of leaps and guesses, because if you don't make mistakes, it's like you're never going to get better at it. If you do, you're never going to learn what to do if you don't learn what not to do.
Yeah. I mean, what about like the encountering a case that you've never encountered before? Like, I guess that kind of ties into it. It's like if you didn't encounter that case, you don't know how to deal with it, or you have to go into the NE then to figure that out.
Go to the NE.
Yeah.
Be like, all right, turn off the SI brain. Let's give this a try. All
Right.
right, that didn't work the best. Let's try
So are
something.
you
Not to do that. Put that
right?
information in the SI and be like, all right, there is a possibility. I acted on that possibility and the possibility didn't work out. Now we're going to store it in the information of what does not work. And then we can
Yeah.
try something else.
Are you with the NE? Are you trying to relate it to another SI, a similar SI?
I can't, half the time, I can't even describe my NE because it's
Yeah.
like my consume's double feminine and NF. So it's like I don't even know what I'm getting half the time, or I'm absorbing half the time, or I'm like,
But I
I,
mean, like when
I'm
you do get, this is my bully consume here, by the way. I'm looking for like a specific answer to a specific question.
I know. And then it's like
Yeah.
my consume's like all the way over here. I'm like, huh? No, 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 the other.
Yeah.
Where it's like, huh?
But it's like, okay, without talking function talk, right? You encounter a new situation that you've never encountered before. Will you try to relate it to something that you have done before? Is that kind of how you solve it? Yeah.
First, something that I have done. If it's something I have not done, I'll try something new.
Interesting. Okay. Hmm.
Which is why the Savior SI makes sense for me. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd run back to what I know first.
Right.
Even though they're both, even though the double observers are incredibly balanced.
Yeah. Do you ever react in real time to a scary or cringy experience from your past?
Yes, I can remember things like they happened yesterday.
Okay.
Like,
So
oh,
like you relive them, you recall them, and you relive them over and over.
oh yeah, like SF. sleep lasts is very, for me, it's very much like that, especially having the
Mhm.
the feminine feeling.
Yeah.
I can remember the details, the events very well, but it's having a harder time. It's like I'd have to put myself mentally time back in that time or that memory for me to really understand what I'm feeling at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, like, how does that work with trauma and stuff like that? Are you able to deal with trauma better because you're, or it's even harder?
I think superficially it looks like I'm dealing with it better, but I'm actually dealing with it worse because it's like my default is just to emotionally shut down, shut off. I've done that for years. Like
Mhm.
that was like defense mechanism was okay, shut off emotionally and not look inward.
Mhm.
Look at everything else. Like it's like because it's almost like I didn't want to add like more emotional trauma or pressure to
Right.
somebody else's situation. But I was
Because like,
doing it consciously. Like I wasn't even realizing I was doing it.
yeah.
Experience something, I'll be on the outside seeming fine for a while, and then 2 or 3 months later, I'll have like the most intense, like, what just happened? Oh my goodness, I'm reliving this all over again.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I guess that would be kind of like the sleep. It's like you went through an experience, right? And you have to go relive that experience over and over again until you've processed it, until you've organized it, until you figure out how you feel about it.
Right.
Th- Is that kind of what the what you're going through?
Yes. It's like I'll remember, I'm like, okay, I remember this event happening. I remember this event happening. It's not so much trying to relive it to experience the same event over and over again, but it's trying to connect, okay, how was I feeling? How was I feeling? How was I feeling? And for a lot of it, it was like, I don't remember, or I don't know.
That's really interesting.
Attention to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you're trying to recall how you were feeling. Like, why wouldn't this is a speculative question, but like, why wouldn't you be trying to figure out how do I feel about this now? Why is it how was I feeling then?
For me, it would help understanding like what I'm feeling now if I understood what I was feeling then, to sort of let go of what I was feeling then, to understand it, process it, and let it go. Because I would
Yeah,
feel less tense about what I'm feeling about it now if I'd processed what I felt about it then, so those past feelings don't come up and I'm misinterpreting how I'm presently feeling about something versus how I felt about it like 5, 10 years ago.
yeah. So that's interesting because it's like because you're not 5, 10 years ago. You're now, right? So anything you're feeling is how you're feeling now. Anything you're experiencing is your memory of that past event. So it's not real. It's
No.
fake.
It's honestly like running a simulation or it's like VR. Like my kind
Yeah.
of SF sleep last is very feels very VR like of like, all right, we're gonna put on the headset and we're gonna run the simulation over again. Because you keep failing the simulation and it's like you have to keep putting on the headset until you figure
Mhm.
out like, until you realize, okay, this isn't real.
So
Like
have you had it? Yeah. So have you had an experience where you've processed and resolved something from your past and it's changed something for you in the moment or in the future?
a lot of it was figuring out self-forgiveness because I'd blame myself for things that I couldn't fix or control. Where it's like I should have done this differently, I could have done that differently, I could have done this differently and that. But it's like a lot of it was like, okay, this is out of your control, and trying to process like, okay, this wasn't your fault. Like you
Mhm.
couldn't control this.
Yeah.
Like as much as you try to control things, like you couldn't control this.
Yeah.
Just let yourself let your bravado kind of go a little bit. Like you don't have to be perfect or on 100% of the time. Like you don't have to appear like this, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like you don't have to be that person. Like you don't have to have that bravado anymore. Like it's almost like a like when you break your leg and you wear crutches, but it's like after your legs heal, you still have the crutches on. It was almost like that where it's like I used that sort of shutting down emotionally as a defense mechanism, and now it's become so routine that it's like it's not helping me anymore. It's in fact hindering things because it's like I'm not allowing myself to feel things in the moment when something bad does happen.
Yeah. Um yeah, I had something I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. We'll move on. Um Do you enjoy having chaos around you so you get to organize it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
That's a also too, because it's like I like when there's too much order. I like causing the chaos because I'm like, you're being too rigid. We need to shake it. Like in terms of
The
like
play.
things, I feel like I need to be like, okay, you're being too restrictive here. Like, how can you see that far out? Like, things are falling right in front of your face right now that you're not paying attention to. Let me shake up your schedule, and then you're gonna see like your plan's already falling apart. But in terms of
You. Right.
yeah, in terms of physical chaos, yes, sometimes I like it if it's like every so often.
Mm.
It's like a daily, where's my phone? Where's my keys? Where's my wallet? Where's this? Where's that? I'm like, can you just assign a system to remember already? Like, why do I have to remember for you?
Right. I mean, but in terms of yourself, let's say answering this question, right? So, you know where your keys are all the time. You know where your wallet is all. Yeah.
I assign a spot for it. So
Yeah.
if I think I lose
Obvious.
it, I train my brain to go, that's the first place I'm going to look. And if it's not here, it's here.
Right. Yeah, I think I've come around to doing that, but every so often it's not there, and it's not there, and it's not there, and I'm like, where did I put it? That doesn't happen to you? No.
Rarely.
Okay. All right. Um, let's see. What do we have here? Are relationships with people something that can change rapidly in the present, or are mostly based on slow and stable constructions of deep feelings?
I'd say for me, it's slow. Like, pretty slow. Like I still can't believe I typed myself as lead FI because when I was like a child, like even when I was 4 years old, I would like if my dad were to ask me like how are you feeling, I would either hide under my bed or like try to move under a blanket or hide in the corner. Like I would just would not talk. And then he'd be
Mm,
like, hey, like how you feeling? Like an hour later, I'd be like, I feel upset. It's just an hour build up just to hear, I'm sad.
yeah.
Like relationships for me have always been very difficult because of that, because it's like trying to the if I connect with people and like I don't know how much of my real self to reveal with people yet. I don't know if I have to come off very like aloof and passive or some kind of way where I'm not this aggressive blastosaurus rex where it's like I it's so it's like I feel like I come try to come off a certain way when I'm first meeting people. But when I really start to get to know somebody over time, I feel more comfortable being like, okay, I think I can start to shove here, or okay, I think I can start to shove here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what do you I'm also wondering as well, like what is that slow build up that you get? Like do you feel like you have to trust, like build up trust, or what are you building up?
Yeah, I
Yeah?
have to build up trust, and I have to build up a vulnerability thing too. Of like, I really need to show that I really need to for it to be like I can trust you before I can really open up and be vulnerable in my real self with you.
Right.
To show how vulnerable I actually am on the inside of being like, hi, I'm just a little flower. I know I come off tough, but I'm really nice.
Yeah, we've got another relationship question here really quick. In your loving relationships now, what is we could just make that I saw your cringe. Just make it open. What is reproached to you the most that you have trouble to process, and what do you reproach the most?
Okay. Most relationships I've had not been serious. Only two of them have. One in high school and the one I'm currently in now. And it's because like I feel like people were more in love with the idea of me more than actually like me as a person.
Uh,
Because I feel like I would be a very intense person and they weren't ready for it a lot of the time, being like, I love that intensity, but I couldn't deal with like I like you for a good time, not a long time sort of situation.
mhm.
Like you're fun and all that, but it's like I could not handle that intensity like 24/7 all the time. And it too, it's like it's just like hard for me to kind of like open up to people like that. Like kind of be like showing like my authentic gushy type of self. Like I remember when I first met my current boyfriend, it was like my friend group and his friend group, and we were all having an emotional conversation, and it was like he and like a lot of the girls in like the group were like talking, sharing feelings, like going back and forth on stories. And he commented later when he started dating, he's like, I noticed you looking at the floor a lot of the conversation. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, you look like you didn't want to be there. You look like you wanted to leave and go home. I'm like,
Yeah,
really?
I mean,
It was
I get
funny.
that too in feeling conversations. It's kind of awkward. It's kind of like I do because I've got the FE, I want to hear it because I want to be able to triangulate off of it, but I don't want to be involved with it. I don't want to share my feelings because
Right.
I don't. Yeah,
If I was like, I don't want to triangulate, I want to keep it to myself.
right.
So
Yeah,
like, I joke with him later. I'm like, seriously, you had all these women who were sharing their emotions, and you happen to pick the one that was staring at the floor, looking like they don't want to be there. So it's kind of like a learning of you just have to be you, kind of showing your most upfront self as it
yeah,
is, and people are either going to like that or not like that, and it's not a personal thing where it's you say, oh, it's your fault that you screwed this up, or don't beat yourself up for being you. It's like you're going to find somebody that's going to need that sort of
yeah,
tough, like external toughness of somebody who maybe like isn't as assertive as you, or is a little bit more of a pushover than you,
yeah.
kind of stuff.
So this question we already kind of answered. So I'm gonna sorry, Jack. I'm gonna skip to it because we've got a ton of questions. If you did this week's class, can you relate to Ed Sheeran? Sorry, Ed Sheeran, or however you say his name.
I like when I was listening to some of his songs, I'm like, this feels like I definitely relate to the very feminine inner world part of it, or the social anxiety from an EJ kind of way of being like, okay, like how do I talk to people? How do I like NF with people? How do I get the vibe with people? How do I not disrupt the vibe with people? His
Yeah,
memory too, I could very much relate to. I'm like, oh yeah, I my memory is exactly like that. Or the
yeah,
just the people problems, but it's like and the constant like going part of it. I could relate to a lot of him except like him being consumed last. It's like I don't relate to the having the inner monologuing and the processing
yeah,
stage of it. Like I don't relate to that part. But everything else I very much related to. I'm like, oh my goodness, I never realized how close he was to me. Like that was a shock. I'm like, wait a minute. He's consumed last me? What? No way. Like that's cool. Cause like I love his music. I'm like, no way. And I could hear
yeah.
a lot of that like double feminine NF and more of his aggressive type of music because he'll be like shoving and shoving and then it'll be like whoop when it gets to the FI type of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I keep getting questions and then the TE keeps going and I don't know what the question was. Um, um, all right, we'll just keep going. Um, what do we have here? Okay, this is okay. I remember the question. So okay, so FE is I've heard from FE users that they're looking to make sure that everything is emotionally stable or that everyone's values are aligned. So that way we can actually go in and reflect and talk about free thought and have that. So I'm wondering if like the opposite is true for you. It's like I want everything to work so that people can see me and I can actually connect with people.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, making sure everybody's reasons are on if it's like solving a group project, making sure that everybody's reasons are on somewhat of a similar page. So it's like, okay, we're all working on this project. We can all collaborate on this project. We all have a basic understanding as to what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and what the purpose or the end goal of doing a project is. It's
but
very
like
much
getting to that, yeah, but like getting that permission to share your FI, like that's what you have to do first. Because once that's done, does that feel good to finally have permission to share your FI and connect?
because it feels like I'm like because it doesn't feel that bad after you do it, but it's like the beforehand because you're like, what if other people think my emotions don't make sense? What if because it's a lot of the negative self talk is like I internalize like what I'm saying to myself as like as if other people are saying it, but I'm like, no way would other number one, no way would other people that I know say this stuff that I'm saying to myself to me. And number two, I would not say what I'm telling myself to other people. And how I almost triangulate that is, especially when I'm having a hard time with the FI, and this goes to anyone with like demon FI, especially if it's feminine at the bottom. Would you tell somebody else what you're telling yourself? Would you tell another human being that their emotions aren't making sense, that their feelings are invalid? Like, would you tell somebody else that? No, of course you wouldn't. So why are you telling yourself that? Why are you putting yourself to a lower standard than you are everybody else?
Yeah. I mean, what would it take for you to be able to put yourself at the same level as everyone else?
I think kind of like using that as a triangulation of being like, okay, if somebody else were in your shoes, what would you tell that other person? Oh, I tell them that they're doing the best that they can do, and they're trying to make sense of a difficult situation, and that their emotions are completely valid. And it's like, start replacing the you with I's. And it's not easy when you first do it. When you first do it, it feels awful. You're like, why am I validating myself? Like, this doesn't make sense. And it's not helping other people. Like, it was the hardest lesson in the world for me to accept that you can't help other people until you help yourself.
Yeah.
The hardest lesson, or one of the hardest lessons.
I mean, what kind of stuff would you be neglecting? What kind of stuff would you be hurting yourself with, not helping yourself with?
More so the emotional component. But sometimes
Yeah.
it was like when I'd get in these real bad depressive slumps, it'd be like physical stuff too. Because it's just like I wouldn't care. I'd just be like, yeah, whatever.
Mhm. Um, do you, when you see FE saviors, do you get defensive?
I used to. I used
Really?
to because I didn't understand it, especially if it was savior masculine. I'd be like, "Don't force me to share anything. Fuck you. Like, back off." I'm not like that so much anymore because I can really appreciate what the masculine FE saviors are really trying to do.
Hmm.
Like I used to be like
Yeah.
that before I really understood OPS and the code and being like, okay, like they're pushing this hard on the values because like what you're strongest in is what they feel weakest in. Like their no reasons is
Yeah.
what you're really struggling with.
Can we get back to that earlier question then, just before we finish, about the any FI tidal waves? Do you see that at all?
I more so see the FI ones than the FI ones
Yeah.
are easy for me. The NEs are much harder for me to see. Just because at times that it's like sometimes like the NE will feel like a savior and the SI will feel like a demon just because of how much more demanding the SI is than the NE. But I'd like because honestly, like I'd be surprised. Like I was surprised of like, how am I not like sometimes even though being sleep last, I feel like I'm the worst to consume. Just the worst. But it's not like taking in information like for yourself or like I read a book. Like it's hard for me to just consume just for myself and not have the need to be like, oh, I a cool fact. Let me go share it with 5 people. Hey everyone,
Yeah.
guess what I learned today? And accidentally turning something that should have been consuming it for myself and ending up turning it into a lesson that I'm teaching other people and not applying it to myself.
Yeah. Like being a little bit more selfish with the consume.
Right.
Being a little bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
learning how to be selfish with it and really owning it and being like, this is mine. Like I'm
I don't
growing.
want to, yeah, not sharing it.
Share it. This is mine. I don't want
Yeah.
to share. Like it's. I definitely notice the like not paying attention to the emotional vibes of other people. Like that's where Demon NF can absolutely kick your ass in that regard. Of being like, you may be the smartest person in the room in terms of you have all the information, you have this or that, but if you don't know how to navigate people, you're screwed.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, listening to Dallas, everyone's using him as like the NF stereotype, but like listening to some other ENFPs and INFPs and stuff like that, it's like they're. I wonder if you identify and resonate with them a little bit in terms of be figuring their consume is figuring out um, what's value, like who they want to be, what their, I don't know,
I absolutely
what
really
their place is.
like
Yeah,
what the purpose in life is. Like that
what
I
their
absolutely
purpose in
relate to
life.
because I have
Yeah,
the same decider problems, like the same like NEFI like decider problems. It's just I'm a lot more unconscious about it, or it takes me longer to figure out, okay, that's really the heart of my issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to promote before we've got more questions, but we don't have time? Anything you want to promote or any final words?
I don't think I have anything I want to promote, but just final words, like, don't be afraid of your type. Like, also don't listen to what everybody else tells you about your type. Like, I used to hear that ESTJs are terrifying, and I'm like, not scary for the most part. Just create your own stereotype for your own type and be like, you know what? I'm owning this for myself. Just embrace it, really. Just be you. It sounds so
Yeah.
corny, but whatever, be you. Here's
Sounds
my
really corny, but that's like the demon DI. It's like
yeah.
be yourself.
Be you.
Do
Be
yeah.
yourself.
It's funny though, because like that's exactly what you see the DEs doing. They're giving everyone else permission to be themselves so that in the end they have permission. Yeah.
Nope. Be
Right.
kind to yourself too.
Yeah. So if I can hold up a mirror or you watch this back, listen to your own advice, and then you got your demons handled, right?
This will probably watch it 5 more times and be like, all right, now I kind of get it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. I really appreciate you coming out and being candid and honest and sharing everything with us. It's we're all learning about type in a much better way like this. So thank you very much, Kim.
Oh, thank you
Have
very
a
much.
good one, everybody.
Bye,
Yeah.
guys.
Bye, everybody.